Like everyone else, you want to learn the way to win, but never to accept the way to lose. To accept defeat, to learn to die, is to be liberated from it. So when tomorrow comes, you must free your ambitious mind and learn the art of dying. That's a quote from the always great Bruce Lee. And I thought it was an apt quote to start this video off with, considering what we're going to be talking about and something that's been on my mind. Something I kind of wanted to cover in the last video. But that video already ran long enough, and it didn't need any extra content, and this is enough to be its own thing, so I thought we'd talk about it a little bit. So, in my last video, I talked about fears, and one of the fears I mentioned first was the fear of failure, because that's something I feel quite a lot, and I'm sure many of you do as well. I know it's one of the most common fears that people have. And I've been thinking a lot about that, and I've been dwelling on my fears, and in particular the fear of failure in the last few days. And there's this idea that's the reason I opened with this Bruce Lee quote was because it really tied up some loose ends in the way I was thinking about the fear of failure. To accept defeat, to learn to die, is to be liberated from it, to be liberated from defeat. And that's such an interesting idea, and it really tied up my thoughts there, because I've been thinking about the fear of failure and sort of its opposite, or something that comes along with it in the space of ideas, is ambition. Ambition is something closely tied to the fear of failure. And there's a few sides to ambition, and there's a few, ambition in and of itself is not a bad thing or a good thing. It's just your drive to go from, point A to point B. I want to be up there. There's something there that's piquing my interest. I need to get there. I want to get from where I am to up there. And that in and of itself is not a bad thing. Because when it's set correctly, it's a fantastic thing, but it can also be set very poorly. If I see something that's so awesome, I see having a great family in the future, raising a family, being a father, being successful and changing the world for the better. I want to be there. That's great. That's a great ambition to have. But there's a couple ways ambition can go wrong. And the most obvious one, in the way I've just laid it out, is to have your sight set on something that's not good. When we set our sights on material things, that can be rather dangerous. And that's something that's so prevalent in the consumerist society that we live in. This want, this need for more of material wealth. And that can be seriously consuming. I see it all the time. One of the things I've witnessed online is that these motivational videos and stuff like that have become extremely prevalent. And I think that's a great thing, because it showcases how much people are yearning for purpose and drive and goals. They're trying to reach beyond this sort of nihilistic, kind of atheistic society that we live in. This materialist view of the world that we've had is not enough for most people. And I think those types of videos are a showcase that people are still hungry for more. But one of the things, the point I'm bringing this up for, one of the things I've noticed with those videos and those spaces online, like the red pill community and stuff like that, is that they and this is actually one of my biggest gripe with people like Andrew Tate. I have a number of gripes with him. But one of my gripes with him is that he is fundamentally oriented materialistically. He's telling young men to aim for wealth and success. And that can be a good drive when that drive for wealth and success is a sub drive of, trying to make the world a better place, trying to be a good father, be a good husband, be a good son, a good brother, being a leader in your community, setting things right in the world. But we get super hyper focused on the material wealth aspect, and I see that seeping into those things online. And that's another issue with ambition, is that we can get so focused on the material and the not just the material, but all sorts of things that are not ultimately good. When we place things above what is ultimately good, that's where ambition goes awry. And we know that, we talk about that, and we see that in books and movies, and we've known about the dangers of ambition for a long time. And sort of then the other, well, no, it's not enough. I was going to say there's another facet to ambition that can be bad, which is, of course, when you start placing your drive and your want for more above what you already have, your family, et cetera. But that's really part of the same issue, so we're not going to go any further on that. Another issue with ambition, and this is more prevalent to or relevant, to what we're talking about with this idea of the art of dying, the art of accepting failure, is, and this isn't talked about as much, but with someone who is ambitious, we can become paralyzed by fear. We can be paralyzed by the fear of failure. And I'm someone who's experienced this a lot because I'm a relatively ambitious guy. Maybe not the most insanely ambitious, but probably a little more than the average person. But one of the things I've struggled with is this immense fear of failure, which has led to extreme cautiousness, like to a detrimental degree. And that's been a problem, and I've dealt with that for a long time. And I think partially it's just the way my personality is constructed, that I'm prone to be very cautious, but still it's an issue I deal with, and it's not talked about enough with this, that it's not talked about enough as a part of the dangers of ambition, that you can become paralyzed by fear, and by the fear of failure in particular. So what do we do about that? I've missed so many opportunities in my life because I've feared failing, so I just chose to not take just forsake the opportunity. And as I've gotten older, I've started to realize how important those opportunities are, because I've learned that wealth isn't just money. Wealth is opportunity. You can be rich in opportunity and not have any money, but still be very rich because you've got so much in front of you for the taking. So I've realized how much I've lost by being overly cautious in my work, in my life, in talking to girls and stuff like that. I feel like I've missed out on so many things, possibly job opportunities, raises at work, stuff like that. There's so many things I've missed out on just because I've feared failing. And I've been thinking about that, and it's like, why do I fear failure? What about failure in and of itself is bothering me? And I've realized there's a couple reasons, but one of them is I'm a reasonably smart guy, and I'm reasonably capable. And I've never considered myself an overachiever exactly, but in all the domains that I am in, I expect excellence as a bare minimum for myself. And maybe I'm just talking about me here, maybe you can't relate to this at all, but I know there's people out there that struggle with this as well. It's like I expect bare minimum excellence for myself, and sometimes that has because I've feared that I won't be able to reach that, I've neglected opportunities and neglected relationships and things like that. So that's, I don't know what to do about that exactly. I don't know what the exact prescription is for that. I think the expectation of myself to be excellent in every domain is what is ultimately actually restricting me from reaching my full potential reasonably, or funny enough, because it is stopping me from exploring where I ought to explore and fail when I ought to fail. Because with failure, and this is something that I've started to learn, with failure there is rebirth. When you fail, all is set right. You know exactly where you are when you failed at something. And something else with this, when it comes to taking opportunities and stuff like that, is risk. And I'm so averse to risk by nature of my personality. But it's actually not only okay, but you should risk when you're all in. It's okay to, what am I trying to say? You shouldn't fear failure when you're all in. You shouldn't fear failure when you're all in, because when you're all in on something, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you fail or whether you win or lose. It doesn't matter. You have given it your all. And if it's a domain that you're truly interested in and you truly think is important, and you give it your all, and you burn your boats, you give it 100% of everything you have. It doesn't matter whether you win or lose anymore, because you gave it everything. And now you know exactly where you are, and you know whether or not that domain is for you, and you know whether or not you're going to achieve excellence there. And we shouldn't fear that. I shouldn't fear that. I shouldn't fear failure in times when I've truly given it my all. I think that's the thing right there. Failing is not only acceptable in those cases, but they are failures are a necessary component of broader success in your life. So we got to lose the fear. We got to lose the fear. We got to move beyond the fear. Let's lose the fear of failure and replace it with the fear of never trying to begin with. That's what we need to do. That's what I need to do. Again, maybe I'm just speaking for myself here. Maybe no one else needs to hear this. That's the thing right there. That's why to learn to die, to learn to fail, is to be liberated from failure. Because you can, as long as you haven't actually literally died, you always have a chance to retreat back, go back to the drawing board, and grow and become more than you were. And now you know where you are in the world, because you have given it your all. You know exactly where you are. You know exactly what you gave, and you know exactly whether or not the domain that you're competing in, whether that's work or school or relationship, a sport, it doesn't matter. If you give it your all and you fail, it's okay. It's all right, because the real failure would be to not try and to not give it your all in the first place. That ties right into the great Stoic idea of the obstacle is the way. The obstacle is the path. We shouldn't fear failure of those obstacles, because whether we win or lose, that is the path forward. That's it. Yep. That's the path forward. Failure is the path forward. If you give it your all. If you give something your all and you fail, doesn't matter, because that's the path forward. And if you win, that's great. But we need to learn to accept failure. Like everyone else, you want to learn the way to win, but never to accept the way to lose. To accept defeat, to learn to die is to be liberated from it. So when tomorrow comes, you must free your ambitious mind and learn the art of dying. When you have things in front of you, any domains that you're interested in, any domains that you want to pursue, you have ambitions, you see things, they're calling out to you. And I don't like the way we talk about interests. I don't think the right way of talking about them is we are interested in things. It's more like things interest us. We sort of gravitate towards things. We gravitate towards things and people and ideas, lifestyles, personalities. So when you have those ambitions and when things call you forward and when you have opportunities in front of you to pursue them, give it your all. Give it your all. That's one of the keys here. Give it your all and don't fear the failure, because the real failure would be to not try. Because the right path forward is that exactly, is giving it your all. Because if you fail, boo-hoo, but now you can move forward. Now you can go back to the drawing board. Now you can recuperate. Now you can become more than you were. And now you can know that whatever that opportunity was in front of you, that wasn't the right way forward anyway. As long as you've given it 100% and you know for certain that that wasn't the right path, then you're off to the races, man. It doesn't matter if you win or lose. So we got to drop the fear. I have to get rid of that fear. I have to accept failure and defeat. And that is the art of dying gracefully. It's giving it your all and failing, giving it your all and being defeated, and accepting that as a possibility. Because regardless, win or lose, that is the way forward. The obstacle is the way. The obstacle is the path. Defeat is just a stepping stone. Failure is just a stepping stone for you to become more than you were. So yeah, I think that's about everything. Learn the art of dying. Learn to accept failure. Accept failure and grow and be reborn anew. There's that great imagery of the phoenix rising from the ashes, dying and being reborn ablaze. I love that. I think that's some valuable symbolism to sit on and to think about when we're talking about this, and we're talking about the art of dying, and we're talking about accepting failure. You have room to grow and you have room to be reborn. So accept it. Accept failure. Accept defeat. I think that's all I have to share for you tonight. This video came together very quickly, so I'm sorry if it's not as interesting or in-depth as some of my other videos, but hopefully you can enjoy it. I hope you can take this and apply it in your life and utilize it. I hope my words can be valuable to you, and I genuinely pray for all of you. I hope you all are blessed beyond belief, and I will see you next week. Bye.